Hello, everybody. You are listening to the Vault Broadcast Interview Podcast. My name is Kyle, and I will be your overseer today as we sit and hang out with Nort of Grim Encounters, a podcaster, a TTRPG GM and host. This was an absolute blast. I'm going to try not to ramble too much at the start because I'm going to let Nort take it away and explain all the background. But I do want to tell people up front, if you're interested in grabbing a copy of the Fallout TTRPG that we play, the official one from Modifius, you can check out the code BTAILS for 10% off at checkout. We'll link that below. And as well, if you want to grab any cool Bethesda merch from the Bethesda Gear Shop, you can check out our codes. I believe, well, at the time of this, we'll be somewhere around BTAILS 35, 36, 37, all the rest. Save you 20% off at checkout and give us 10% kickback. We've got our very own coffee page going on. If you want to become a subscribed member, just go over to ko-fi.com/overseer Kyle, and you can become a member, do one-time donations, anything that you like helps us a ton and will help us grow into our very own studio. But without further ado, let's kick it over to Kyle from the past. Hello, everybody. I am sitting down with Austin Norton, aka Nort, host of Grim Encounters podcast. This is a very exciting interview because I have been binging your show, which is a Fallout TTRPG series. Very great setting and theme. And just so that I'm not sitting up here talking and rambling nonstop, Nort, I'm going to toss it to you. If you'd like to tell us a little bit about Grim Encounters and how this project came about, because it's a really fun group of players and really great sort of just energy on the podcast. I like the layout of it, the way you did character backgrounds and the such. So again, before I ramble, why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got together and started doing that podcasting TTRPG group?
Yeah. So, I mean, shoot, I did YouTube years before podcast stuff, but in 2018, we decided to do a tabletop RPG podcast. They were sort of exploding at the time, and we didn't want to settle on D&D, so we wanted to do like a horror themed kind of thing. So we started with Chill, which is like a little indie thing, a little indie book from the 90s, and it's very campy is the style we were going for. And then this newest season, we wanted to do Fallout because most of us are a pretty big fan of Fallout. It was just really fun to get into it and get to experience like playing in a setting and actually affecting it. That's something that's so established. Yeah.
I'm a GM for our my own group of players for the Fallout TTRPG, and I gotta say that point really hits home there at the end, affecting that world. So often we're just tourists in the Fallout space, but when we get to host the game ourselves, we get to fill in a lot of the gaps that the universe leaves us to explore. Can you tell us a little bit about the setting for your Fallout TTRPG? Because I think it's a really unique one.
Yeah, so before we started, I got together. One of my players is a pretty big Fallout fan like I am, so he's played a lot of the games and stuff. And the other two have just like watched the show, basically. And one of them is my wife, so she's heard me, ramble about Fallout. But so we went through and we like picked like a canon ending for all the games of what we were going to consider canon. And we wanted it close to the TV show, but not like after, so the TV show wouldn't affect us at all and we wouldn't have to worry about it. So I think we set it on like 2291 is when our year is, which I believe is a few years after Fallout 4. And we're all from Illinois, so we're big fans of Chicago. And there's only been one game that touched on Chicago, and it's like canon, it's not canon, it's so hard to know which one it is. So we just decided we're going to make our own. So we made the city of Chicago. And it's the rad windy city. So there's been lots of heavy rad storms that have affected it. And thanks to the wind, the bombs, when they flew, they pushed them into Lake Michigan. And they blew up there. So there's no water in Lake Michigan. But all the radiation still swept over the city, so so we kind of went like that, and there's a faction that has restored all the roads, basically, So cars are a big part of the city, and there's a church that worships the bean. So I wanted it to be kind of fun, and I wanted to make my own factions, but I did also want to use a lot of the established factions, especially from Fallout 3, which is my favorite one, I think. So yeah,
I really love that. And I've between myself and I think I've talked to about 2 other TTRPG players at this point, making you probably my third here. I've noticed a trend amongst us all, and it's that we tend to gravitate, unsurprisingly to many, to the regions we're familiar with. One of the people up in Canada doing games up in Toronto there, and I'm a guy that lives near Pittsburgh, and we use the Appalachian area a lot, and I like your comment regarding the timeline too. That's, I think, something that when you're building, this is just sort of general advice to anyone that's out there looking to try the Fallout TTRPG or host any kind of shows or dramas in this sort of setting. I like that you're working with both the established lore and trying to be mindful of that timeline, but also great flexibility in building out a city of your very own. I love this idea of the restored roadways. And I heard that, I think, in the podcast that you guys, maybe it was in the Session 0 episode or something of the like, where you talked about how travel with vehicle would be a big element. And I just like to go ahead and ask, hopefully this is not like intruding too far. I'm certainly not caught up completely on your show. But have characters really gotten into using vehicles themselves? Is that sort of something off in the distance for them to approach? Where do you kind of sit with that? Because I think vehicles are something that, I don't know, we don't get that in the game. So it's a whole speciality of the TTRPG.
Well, and then like in the lore, like from what I've read in other like lore casts I've listened to, like people still use vehicles. It's just like the games, they just never implemented them because of, I'm sure it's like a mechanic's nightmare on just the back end of that. So I was like, oh, well, let's really do it. And they released that book, one of the new 2D20 books that had all the vehicle mechanics in it. So we're like, oh, we want to play with this. So one of my players, Robert, really wanted to have a car. And I was like, well, how can I make this happen? So we created a whole faction called the Vehicular Heathens, and they're kind of like Mad Max meets Fast and the Furious. They worship their chrome chariots. They all have vehicle part names, and then all like the priests and scientists have tool names. And so like when you join the family, you have to adapt a new name. And anyone's welcome. And they love all forms of tech. Like they're really fond of like synths and robots and stuff, because it's like, well, I mean, that's just a car, but it's walking. They were supposed to get their car, I think, like 3 or 4, episode 3 or 4. But in classic Fallout, just not doing the main quest. They took them like I think 10 episodes or something before they got their vehicle. Just because they didn't even get they didn't go talk to the main quest giver, like the first one, like when you step out of the vault in the games. And I was like, okay, well, I guess we're just walking for a while. And it's big, like Chicago's huge. So
wow.
But yeah. So they have it now, and they fly around. It helps out a lot. We still use like the travel mechanics. I've just I've like toned them down because it's faster than it would be normally. So yeah,
that makes a lot of sense. My players, I decided to eventually give them, I think it was just a culmination of things. They came across an APC that I described as not totally destroyed. And I think the question came up, like, could we fix this? I'm like, yeah, sure. Absolutely, you guys can. I think you called out a really good point there. If you're using the official TTRPG by Bethesda and Modiphius, like you mentioned, the Wanderer's Guidebook brings with it a lot of new I don't know why I'm saying that. It brings vehicles from the Fallout universe to life, so you can get into them and actually travel around with them. Vertibirds, I think there's even motorcycles in there.
Yeah.
So that's really fun. I'm loving that how entwined and ingrained it is to your plot line in particular. So they just chose to walk past the quest giver like all good open world folks do, huh?
I even put the quest in 2 different places that they could run into. So there's two different people they could talk to, and they walked right down the middle. And I went, okay. And then eventually, like, where's my car, Daddy DM? And I went, well, you didn't get it.
You didn't go back get it. You just walked on past.
It's like I can only guide you so much before I'm railroading you. So,
and that's a bit of it too. I mean, this. We can just nerd out about TTRPG setups here at the start for quite a while. That there is that balance, right, between railroading them and making an open world that doesn't feel too open, because you don't want them to feel like decision paralysis. And that's something I always talk to my players about, is like, the moment you decide on any direction in the world, I can start filling it in for you. But there is this, you do have to take some time to talk to the people, to get to know them and all the rest. Have you found Chicago to be a good scope and scale for your game to be set? I mean, it sounds like it from the outside looking in that would be a really fun environment to explore. But now, sorry, I'm asking two questions. One is, how many episodes are you into this season? And has that set of the city worked out so far for you?
Yeah, we have, I believe 22 episodes are out, and we have a 23rd that I'm in the middle of editing. And yeah, they seem to really like it. I made it quite large. So I think if I was doing this again, I might cut it down a little bit. But I think the car really helps with that, having the movement, because if they were just walking, it would just be similar to the maps we've seen in the games. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think the vehicles really, it like doubles or triples where they can go reasonably. So, but yeah, I think the scope, they seem to be having a lot of fun. People seem to be enjoying it. We haven't seen big chunks on the map, and I don't know if we ever will, because it depends on if they go there. And I've mentioned here and there, like, little tidbits of like, oh, if you go here, this is this type of city. Like, there's like a whole prison city they haven't been to, but I've mentioned it a couple of times. Yeah, it's ran by ghouls. It's called Rot City. And then right now they are heading north towards, there's like this living plant wall that sprung up in Chicago, due to some secrets, but it moves. If you look at it, like, it's kind of like a starfish. Like, if you look at it long enough, you'll see it move. And they're heading towards there because they're on a mission to find one of Damon's family members. So I'm really excited for them to get there, because it's going to be not like a tone shift in like vibes, but just in like a scenery shift. I'm really excited to like rip that Band-Aid off for them.
I heard the plant wall introduced in I forget which episode now, but that just seemed like such a cool thing, and it just fits so well with Fallout lore of all kinds of viney experiments breaking free and mutating and all the rest. So yeah. I really dig that in particular. It's just a thematic element. But I also really like what you're saying a second ago. I think that's the part I want to dwell on more. When it comes to scope, that was a great comment, because we notice in video games, Fallout, but other things, Grand Theft Auto and similar, when they base it on a real world city, they obviously have to shrink it down to meet game mechanic size. That if they were to implement every single building, I mean, that would be near impossible for game developers to do. Yeah. You're going to look at, a 30-year development cycle or something like that. But even more so to the players who are in it and engaging with it, it can feel probably like there's just so much going on. Where do you even begin? And I think there's a repetition that maybe even comes about. This is something I'm trying to avoid in my games, and I'm curious if you might have any thoughts being in such a city environment. I'm trying to give my players what feels like unique experiences within buildings, within the lootable environment, let's say. And I'm curious how Chicago might play into that. You've already kind of said that you've got different areas of the city with different thematic elements like Rot City there. I love that. Have you done any kind of, even if it's not something you think about all the time, do you have that sort of balance in your mind ever, Nort, about, keeping them going to different areas so that the players are getting something new, so that it's sort of broken up in their mind? Do you approach that in any particular way, or does that come about very naturally for them?
I do think I am quite lucky with the players I have, because one of them I played my first D&D game with, and we're still playing together. So we have, similar amounts of experience, and we both DM'd, so we know how to help each other while also still having a good time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then my other two players they just want to experience stuff. Like, they're just like, let's just do it. And I've thrown boring stuff at them, and then they've that I thought was boring, and they've latched onto, and I was like, oh, okay, I guess you really like this merchant or whatever.
Yeah.
So I try to at least make like the settlements they go to is kind of what I focus on, because that's my favorite part of the Fallout setting, is besides the factions, is how each settlement feels so different, because they would in just that kind of society. So yeah, whenever when I started building, I started with before I even placed them, I started with the settlements were going to be, and then their vibe, and then I kind of placed them in certain areas or whatnot. And just by peppering them with like little hints from NPCs, or I'll be like, oh, roll a. I think we use like survival perception for a lot, because there isn't like a history or whatever. So, and I'll be like, oh, I'll just say a little fun fact, and like that could either make them go that way, or if they're not interested, I just like, okay, and I just move that down. I move it away to the side. Like, okay, we're not interested in that right now. But yeah, it's for varying the environments. I think if you make enough that fit your theme and they're not too outlandish, this goes for any TTRPG. The players will find fun in the things that you put out there, as long as you like not placate them, but like play into the bits with them. You know what I mean? That's what I've learned a lot, is just to roll with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think that's you made a great comment in there too about the stuff that we as the game masters might find boring, and surprise folks, there are elements that we have to include in the plot or in the scenery and development of it that we're not the most attracted to, but I think it's really fun when the players cling to that stuff. Some of my favorite moments in our game have come from what I tossed in as a throwaway character or similar things of that sort. We're just saying that it's fun to latch on to what the players find interest in, that there's throwaway characters that game masters toss in, things that we don't expect really to flush out, but when the players find some sort of attraction to that, I think that's really fun and engaging when we're drawn into those moments. And I kind of maybe want to use that as a springboard to ask about your history, because I think you said 16 years of TTRPG experience. That is a substantial time. You want to maybe talk us through a little bit of the timeline there? What'd you start with?
Sure.
Did you play that entire time? How'd you eventually get around to Fallout? That's just the questions that come to my mind with it. So what do you think there, Nort?
So we started in like 2011, 2012. It's like 14 to 17 years. It's so blurry. I can't remember exactly when we started, but I always just say 15 or 16. And we started listening to, me and Shane from the podcast started listening to a D&D podcast. And this was like, I mean, podcasts were still getting around to stuff at this time, and into like bigger markets or whatever. And they were like, oh, we want to play this. And it was around when 4th edition was out. I don't know if you've ever played 4th edition Dungeons and Dragons.
No.
Don't. It's very rough. I know all 3 of the fans out there are very upset at me. But it was very like you play a barbarian and you have like 20 pages to your character sheet. And it was just like, oh my goodness. But but like again, it was still D&D, so the lore was fun, and it was still Dungeons and Dragons. So we played that up until 5th edition came out, and we immediately left 4th edition because we were tired of 6-hour combats. Then we started experimenting with some more stuff after we played 5th edition for a few years. And I know I ran like a Call of Cthulhu campaign at some point, and I really liked it, but it was just so dang depressing to do long term. And I really like horror, especially like comics and books and stuff. And so I want to do a horrors type thing. And then we found Chill, which was like, we are fighting these monsters and these like vampires and eldritch things, but there's still hope. And that's something I latched onto, is that like, we're hopeful and we're doing this to save people and to push back against the darkness instead of just surviving it. And that's what drew me to Chill specifically. And then with Fallout, we've always wanted to play a Fallout TTRPG, but there really hasn't been an official one, or in any of the fan made ones. I could never get anyone to want to try. But then when Modifius came out with their rule set, I was like, oh, this is it. This is the one. I can get them, because it's D20. There's rules, but it's not like crunchy combat rules. You know what I mean? So that's what drew me and us to the Fallout 2D20. But yeah.
Yeah, to go on to that point, I think that the official TTRPG for Fallout's a great one. It's really, I mean, this goes to show our difference of an experience here, that I was one of the people that did not get into TTRPGs. Baldur's Gate 3 was really my big push, and I had friends way in the past that had little interest in TTRPGs, but never enough to form a group or anything. I didn't have that motivation. Yeah. But Baldur's Gate 3, making it digital rules, getting it in your face, and I thought, okay, I actually really like all these systems. And then for me, it was just ironically an Instagram ad that was like, hey, there's a Fallout TTRPG. And I thought, well, that's a perfect like way to get into it. I've got friends that love Fallout. I really want to try my hand at GMing. And I think the rules are very, I mean, I'm not here to split hairs on any of it, to be honest, but it's very appropriate to the universe. All the same chems and weapons and all the rest that you're familiar with Fallout make an appearance in there. I mentioned the thing about splitting hairs because I'm sure, like you said, the 3 other people that are upset about D&D version 4, I'm sure there's someone out there in the Fallout universe that's like, this is not correct. I'm missing points on my stim pack or whatever thing it is. And hey, remember everyone, it's TTRPG. You could adjust it with the home rules however you want to home brew them. But I think right out of the box, it's a pretty good set of rules. And I'm not glazing it for any reason other than that I personally enjoy it. It's just nice. And it really was a leg up in getting people in there. My whole table, none of us have played a TTRPG before, not in any serious capacity. And I want to also go off of that just to say I love that comment about Call of Cthulhu being too dark for too long. And I think that's something that Fallout really pushes back against, is speaking from my own experience. I'm not typically a lover of post-apocalyptic stuff, but the bubblegum wrapper that Fallout's presented in, from the old-timey music to the visuals of the posters and billboards, it's a very fun and upbeat universe, even though you're living through horror and trauma and everything. And so those points really resonate with me. Maybe we could talk a little bit about before you did the Fallout on the TTRPG podcast. Before you've gone into the Fallout game, you've done, 3 seasons in advance from memory? And that was which system, if you could remind us? That was the campy horror one. Yeah,
it's called Chill. It came out in the 90s, and then they released a 3rd edition in the early 2010s, excuse me. And yeah, it could be tons of different styles. They have a whole style in the thing. If you want to do gothic or gore heavy like a Saw or something. And then we picked campy because the only horror movies I can really watch, because I'm a scaredy cat, are campy horror movies like Cabin in the Woods and stuff, is because they have those undertones of not necessarily humor, but just like it'll be okay. So like that's what gravitated us towards chill specifically. And when we started, we wanted it to be kind of a serious horror, and then we got like 3 episodes in, and we're like, oh, we're too silly goofy, I think, for some serious stuff. So let's just throw as many horror tropes in as we can, and it has like this token system, where like I can flip them to make things happen, and the players can. So it's kind of like how like in a horror movie their phone doesn't work. Why is it not working? It's 2025. Oh, horror movie. I don't. I flipped the token, so now I use my resource, and it's like this constant back and forth. It really makes interesting things happen on both ends. I think I answered your question.
You did, and
Okay.
I'm just sitting here grinning because I feel very similarly about the movies I'm interested in. I think you and I probably have about the same stipulation that I need it to be at least a little funny or somehow uplifting or very like tongue-in-cheek, sort of making fun of itself. I don't know if you're someone that likes like Evil Dead sort of show movies. They did the Ash versus Evil Dead show that came out on Starz about a decade ago now, and that stuff really draws me in because there's very much the gore is humorous. It's over the top intentionally. And so when you're talking about this, I'm just really eager to go back and listen to those first 3 seasons. Skipping over them to get to the Fallout stuff, like knowing what I was doing, was a little tough because I was like, I just really want to sit here and binge from start to finish. And I'm guessing that transitions well between both not your group specifically, but also the thematics of the universes. If you're just doing campy humor or horror, and now you're taking it into the Fallout universe, that seems like a natural mesh to me. Has that proven to be that way for you and your players?
Well, yeah, instead of it being campy horror, it's campy sci-fi now. Because like my favorite thing about Fallout is, like you said, it's like this bubblegum wrapper, but then you open it and you're like, oh, it's traumatized. Oh no, these are some serious topics we're talking about. But we're tying it with a bow at the end to be like, yes, it's bad, but like we can figure this out. We don't want to become this. It's almost like we don't want this to happen. This is the things you don't do.
Yeah.
So I thought it fit very well. And like, I mean, even like some of the Fallout games, I haven't played 76 much, but I know like 3 and 4 had like eldritch touches you could find and stuff. Like I think you find like a dagger and a colt in 4 or something. So I know like horror is also kind of a little part of it of Fallout 2. So I was like, I think this is going to be an easy transition for me as a game master too. I don't have to change my style up too much. But yeah.
And I think that's important. Like hitting the humorous elements of Fallout is sort of one of the necessities of it. I mean, this isn't me gatekeeping anyone out there. You can run your Fallout game however you want. But when you look at just the legacy of Fallout as we have it, it very much ties in both of those elements, the high and the low.
Yeah.
And one of my players, in fact, found a Fallout writer's guide that's floating around the internet. It's someone's Google Doc, and it's really well done. It gives a ton of sources of material you could go and watch and read. And one of the elements in there is talking about whatever plot you're writing for Fallout, it talked about having the balance, that you want to try to strike that balance between gruesome, trauma-inducing horror that very much exists in the universe, especially in the vaults, but not exclusively the vaults. But also you want to keep that high energy of the fun music and the Vault Boy signs that are just wishing you a better tomorrow. Tongue-in-cheek lie, of course. vault-tec knew what they were doing to a large degree, and so I think all entities in that universe have to balance some aspect of that. And I think there's a lot of fun when your characters start to learn elements of that. So maybe without spoiling too much, and we're going to in a moment go on to talk about other shows that you guys are doing, but I guess I'm kind of curious, have you had any notable moments that surround this topic right here? Like, have you had players that have started to grapple with that harsh reality that there's both the optimism but also the almost very pessimistic decaying infrastructure around them. Has that come up in any of your plots so far, or are your players still a little maybe oblivious to how bad things are?
Yeah, so specifically it was in one of the teens that we've done. I created a homebrew faction called the Kingdom. And they're kind of silly. They all talk in a bad British accent because they've never heard a British accent, and they all wear like medieval armor and stuff. Like the faction started in like an old medieval times, so like they're like infantilizing medieval times. But like there's a lot of negatives that come with that. So because in a lot of the Fallout games, there's always like a slavers faction, and because it's a heavy topic, but it is in it. And how they usually handle it in the games is they're very villainous, and which is perfect. That's how it should be. But for mine, I wanted to do that, but I wanted to give it a twist. So when they meet the Kingdom, they look just like goobers, and then they're talking to them, and they're like, "Oh, these guys are actually evil. This the slave faction, and they have power in the city because they have this virus that they've procured from pre-war that they're like, we'll just unleash it if you try to stop us." So, yeah. And so like, they're like, "Oh, haha. Oh no. Oh, these guys are bad." Yeah, they are bad. But like, and then like, but their town has like civilians in it that are just like living as like peasants, like how they would do like turfs and stuff. So they don't know, anything else besides what they've grown up in. So it was fun throwing that at them, and then having them be like laughing and then instantly hate them, which was what I wanted. So,
Sounds like a perfect setup and delivery there.
And they messed them up at one point. So I was like, okay, good, my job's done.
Do you say these guys, this faction started out of a medieval times, like the jousting restaurant sort of thing that's out there?
Yep.
Because that's an incredible start.
Like 200 years ago or whenever, like after people could come out, because there was people that weren't in the vaults that made it.
Yeah.
They just basically, the person who found all this stuff was not a good person and founded a bad society, like where we take advantage of weaker people that they, weaker in quotation marks. But yeah, and then like giving it the medieval times, because they think it's so regal and so fancy, but it's really like, dude, I could just go there and I eat turkey leg with my hands. Like, what do you mean? This is a joke. Like, it's making fun of what you love.
I love that about the Fallout universe. Those complete flips on its head. That's just such a good example of it. Having been to a medieval times once before, many years ago, I was fairly young when family took me there. But to imagine that and how people in the Waste would misconstrue all of the meanings and themes of it is just really wonderful. I love that. So you've built this great universe, or an extension of this universe in Chicago. How much of this do you see kind of coming from your past experiences as a TTRPG player and a GM? Because these are denser and some very sensitive themes, like you said. And from everything I've heard, you're handling them very, very well. But topics of slavery and such like that are, I would argue, in many cases, a necessary evil to address. I'm of the school that we shouldn't avoid having any conversation about it, because I think that causes us great harm as people, as humans, to ignore real tragedy, especially when it fits naturally into this element. Caesar's Legion and other things that make appearances throughout Fallout. You can look at Nuka World in Fallout 4. Slavers and slavery happens very regularly in the Waste, as we can imagine it too. How do you think some of your background with past games has helped you get to where you are now? Like, these tough subjects, have you dealt with any of them in the past? what's that been like for you?
Yeah, if I ever tend to have, because there's some things that I won't go into games. Usually, like essay stuff. Like I usually just, I don't, not that I'm like erasing it. I'm not going to portray anything like that. There's nothing I can say that's going to be worth it. Like it's bad. We all agree. We hate it. Let's just focus on killing the evils. Not that those people are evil. That's not what I meant. But like something that's more of a group is easier to digest when it comes to like a serious topic like that. And then like for like stuff I've done with slavery in the past, I was like, oh, they're not redeemable. I'm erasing that. Like there's no gray side to what they're doing. And they're doing it because they're greedy and evil and they want more power. So like I've handled it once or twice before, and I kind of did it similar how I did it in this show. Except before they were very much more like cartoony, twirling their mustache evil, as like a predecessor, because I wasn't sure how to handle it, because again, like we're all learning with stuff like that. So, and with topics like that, it's because you don't want to like make someone feel uncomfortable too much or unsafe in one of these environments, because we're here to have fun, obviously. And I don't know, it's a very interesting question. Is there anything that you do specifically with stuff like that, or?
Well, thanks for throwing it back, because I think the question it kind of came into my mind. I mean, we were just talking about it, and I recently even seen some YouTube videos talking about different iterations of D&D. I think like universes within D&D, like settings. And pardon me for the real D&D nerds out there that know way better than me, but there's one desert sort of planet one, and I guess the idea of overthrowing a slave order and system is a big part in it. So I was listening to a YouTuber recently just kind of talk about the sensitivities and delicate nature of that. So that, I think that prompted it. And how I handle these situations, I think similar to you, that I've got a table of players who are 110 or more % opposed to slavery and SA, anything similar to it. So there's never a fear or risk at my table that somebody's going to go the wrong direction with it. And I think that probably bears needing to be said just for the general audience out there, that it sounds like both of our sets of players already have their real life moral alignment set up in a good way. And so if you're hosting someone out there, if you're hosting like an open table environment where you don't know the people, or maybe you have some real edgelords in there, we'll just leave a caveat here that your path is going to be a bit different than Nort and I's, just because you might have, depends on who's at your table, they might look at that stuff the wrong way. My players really want to bring the world that they want to see from real life into Fallout, which is building communities that genuinely care about each other, that they're not exploiting one another, and things like that. So I think if we have slavers or the like come about, I have no doubt in my mind my players would be trying to stomp that out very aggressively. Yeah. And so I think that's more of a compliment to them than I could even give to myself. In any way, because I'm sure I would ham it up that this is some big evil group that should be conquered and annihilated from doing what it's doing. But I think ultimately, what I would probably find the most interesting about those plots will be watching how my players choose to go about that. Without talking and making myself the center of this, I'll just say in our TTRPG series, Tales from Tomorrow, one of our players who has sort of seen himself a little bit of a hero, very like honorable direction for his character, got confronted. A really seismic, it was a simple bar conversation, but it changed the player's direction maybe a little. He was asked how he's different than raiders, because for all the good they've tried to do for this town, they've had some really big seismic moments that have hurt the town. And I've just used that as a fun storytelling narrative device that the players who went in thinking they were the heroes have caused enough harm without realizing it that the town may not see them as heroes. The town may be seeing them as a bit of a liability, or maybe even as... I don't want to go further than that because I don't want to put my listeners, my players are probably out there listening to this, but just to say that I wonder how the town perceives those people. And I think that's just been a very interesting moral and ethical dilemma that's come about. So I don't know if you feel any parallels to that in any of your playthroughs or characters, the rest, but yeah.
I mean,
interesting.
Shoot, when I started TTRPGs, there wasn't session zeros. We didn't talk about where we stood on things, and that led to a lot of terrible situations over the years. I mean, not even just different political stances, just different ideals and different ways to handle stuff. I mean, I'm sure I've played with people in the past that would be like, well, why don't we talk to the slavers first? And I'm like,
right,
okay, yeah, let's talk to them. So not that my players opened fire immediately because they were outnumbered, but like the tonal shift when I was like, because they were like, haha, that's so funny, his name's Bartholomew and he's talking funny, and then the ghoul who's been in the city for 100 and 200 years or whatever is like, nah, that's the slavers, man. And they're just like, oh. And it was like their smile turned to, okay, cool, that's what we're that's who's messing with us right now. So that was not that I had any doubt they would do that. It was just I love seeing it still, just because of what I've experienced with past people from starting for so long. I mean, when ranging from when you're a teenager up until your 20s is a lot changes with people. So, but yeah, I think it's really interesting what you said, that like it confronted how they were feeling like a hero and stuff, because that's one of the things I love about TTRPGs. And that's why I was excited when Baldur's Gate 3 got big, because I was like, oh, it's going to introduce so many other people to the community. Because when we started, it was just kind of like the classic neckbeards that were here. I mean, like everyone else, they just didn't mess with it because they're mean. So it's nice that it's so open now, and like session zeros are so damn important. I say it all the time, and it feels a little corny. I'm not gonna lie to do it, but it's so gosh dang important, and it stops feeling corny like after the first question usually. But like it's even if you know the person, just do it. Just ask the questions. Like I've seen Kyle's stuff. I know what he stands for. I'm still gonna ask him the questions I would ask anyone, just to make sure that I'm not going to get sideswiped by something, like,
yeah,
it's really important. Even if you're returning to the table, every new campaign, every new, like podcast season, we do another session zero, and we're like, hey, here's how we're feeling. Anything new that we need to know? And then most of my players are like, oh, just, the normal super terrible stuff don't do.
Yeah.
And then everything else, I'll let you know if it comes up. And I'm like, perfect, just do that. In front of people or not, whatever you're more comfortable with. Because it's cool to see someone who's newer into the space. And like you're immediately, I'm assuming you, from what I can tell, but like that you're immediately kind of using those tools and talking to people about those things, because we're telling a story and it's improv. So who knows where it can go.
I'm glad you even brought that up, because I was going to dwell on it too, that as someone coming in at this stage, I genuinely cannot imagine not doing a session zero.
Yeah.
And to the veterans out there that have played way longer than me, I don't want this to sound like I'm talking down or anything like that. It's not at all the intention. I just physically cannot imagine trying to get to session 1 without having a prep stage. I'm sure it was a cultural sort of shift, as you've sort of implied there, that it wasn't a thing, and now it is. And the same safety tools I'll just throw out there too, of like lines and veils, X's, things like that. Those again, just to me feel like something so important. But it also now, as a brand new player, feels really baked in. I think the Fallout rulebook, from memory, even encourages a session zero and its tools.
Yeah.
I could be wrong. It's been a while since I've read it, but they have even a pretty good section there about respect your players. And it is unfortunate. I mean, we're not taking a political lean to this right now, but it is worth noting that it's sad that there's a group of people online that push back against safety tools or session zeros in general. I think that is a very vocal minority. I think it's a very small group of players who don't like that sort of stuff or think it's weak or whatever, but it's just good planning. I mean, it doesn't have a political bent or anything like that to it. It's just making sure your players are feeling comfortable with the direction you're going. I think if there's a GM out there who is looking to make their players feel uncomfortable in an unwelcoming way, I think that's already the biggest red flag in the world. That if you're trying to make your players unconsensually feel awkward, miserable, sad, whatever it is, that's no good. Whatever emotions I think are to come out at the table should be something that people understand in advance. You know, if this is going to be a darker plot line, if it's going to have darker elements to it, and I'm keeping in with the sort of the PG-13 realm of Fallout. When I say dark elements, I think that's still stuff that people should be in agreement to. For us, for an example, we have a no torture rule. That's basically, I'm simplifying it down to saying, I refuse to act out a scene of torture, whether it's the players to an NPC or vice versa. That happens in the Fallout universe, and there can be illusions to it, little comments like whatever. But you know, that's just one example that comes to mind, that we're not going to act that out. It's just too far, especially because this is escapism at the end of the day for me and my players. We want to build something where people are coming out of it feeling a little more powerful and emboldened, comfortable. But I hope that
I get that
comes into the conversation. Like, I think that's a necessity of those rules.
And even on like the flip side, like if you're a GM and you get your players' veils back, right? And it's like they don't want gore, they don't want death to anything, and all these things. It's like, well, you're not going to fit at my table because it's a violent game. Why don't you go try something like Wanderlust or another like a Grant Howitt one shot, or something that's a little bit more lighthearted, still really, really fun, and I've had lots of fun with that stuff. But like, that's not what I specialize in, is making a conflict that's not serious, not like serious and like it's not important, but like not even like things have to be dark either. That's not how I am. It's just, I don't know, you never know what something's gonna go, or what needs to be the tone of whatever you're doing. So it can help both parties, because like, I'm not going to kick that player out, but I'm going to be like, hey, I don't know if I can make that happen and have everyone have fun. So if you want to try a session and then bail, that's fine. But I'm telling you, when he shoots and we shoots and they get a headshot and it's a critical hit, I'm going to make fun brains explode. That's fun. I'm sorry. But then we're not going to have homophobia. So I have both. You can have both. So I think it's just really important, like you said, and I think it's great, because there's still lots of old heads that are like, no, I don't want to do that.
And,
bro,
and in that similar vein of what you're just saying, those are the people that, with the utmost respect, I wouldn't want at my table. And I think that's, as I watch some YouTubers out there's a channel I like called Crit Crab. I don't know the guy personally, can't attest to anything outside the fact that his videos seem to be welcoming and all-inclusive. And he looks at, I think primarily Reddit posts of tables that have gone wrong, really dwelling on the extreme cringe side of it, whether that's GMs putting their players into sexually explicit and unwelcome situations or whatever. And I found that consuming some of that material, these critiques, has been really helpful for me as a GM, because these aren't issues that would come up at my specific table, right? Because again, I have trust in these players, but it's useful to know as a GM, there's just things that are going to make people uncomfortable that you can't predict. You're not everybody in the world. You don't know everyone's lived experience. And so I think bringing that sort of stuff into your knowledge is good. I want to just throw out, like, for our table, I also said to people, I'm like, I'm not interested in role-playing romance. I'm just not going to be that guy for it. I want to do action, chase, this, that, the other. We can elude you having a spouse or a love or whatever it is, but I, as a GM, don't really, with this group of friends I have, I don't want to role-play that. And I think that's a healthy discussion, like you were saying, to have in advance, because this is a two-way street for who fits at your table. The GM needs to like the direction the players are going to go, and the players need to like the direction the GM's going to go. I don't think anyone out there should be afraid of walking away from a table that's a bad fit for them. It's ultimately our spare time, our recreational time, and I would really hope, that we all respect each other enough that if it's not going to work, we don't try and force it to the point that someone has a bad day. I think that is far from the direction we want to be. But like you said, unfortunately, there are some old heads out there that don't have that shared value. And I'm sure that was probably tougher in the earlier stages of your GMing and just TTRPGing experiences.
Yeah, I mean, especially with like racism was pretty rampant. Homophobia was a constant. I don't know how old you are, Kyle, but I just turned 30, so I was through the whole everyone using gay as an insult, and
Definitely.
I didn't come out as a bi man until far late in my life. So it just dealing with that from my friends, saying, slurs basically, but it was just the culture, and those people now don't do that. But again, we were kids, so we just learn what we hear from people that's around us. So coming from like that environment to like where people are like I'll play with like a 20-year-old, and they're like, all right, so Nort, what's your no-goes? And I'm just like, thank you. Thank you so much. Just really the terrible stuff. Anything else, do what you want to me. But it's just nice to ask that,
I love that they asked. That's so important.
One of the podcasts I'm on, Medieval Midwest, I am in a straight up like relationship with one of the other players. Like we were dating as characters. And like we haven't done like anything that's been like sexual has faded to black besides kissing, but like that was our thing. It's like, okay, yeah, we'll do romance and sex and stuff, but we'll just be like, yeah, we did that, and then it'll
yeah.
And the fans just ate that up. And it wasn't even planned for the show. It just happened because we're just playing the game. So like our characters just fell in love or whatever. So it was fun to play that out, because I've done a romance prior a little bit, but it was very limited. So it's nice to experience different things even now when I'm getting older. So we wouldn't have had that if we didn't talk about it. So you know what I mean?
I like what I'm hearing and I'm generalizing here, but I like the idea that sort of the younger, whether it's of age or even just of experience, young to TTRPGs, I like that they seem to be coming in with a better set of tools to start with. That again, the culture has just changed around this environment. And like you were saying, we have absolutely no go for homophobia, racism, any kind of bigotry is a firm no at our table. And I guess I would try and empower some game masters out there. If you're someone that has not already kind of come up with your own set of rules to have at the table, I would strongly do so. And again, I'm using this interview space, sorry to hijack it from you in any way here, Nort, but just to say,
no,
I got a friend who's doing TTRPG stuff at a local library. He does it for teenagers primarily, and he's a counselor, so he's got background in working with people. And I think for him, this is a perfect bridge, that he's helping these kids who don't maybe have great family figures in their life already to guide them, and he's using a fun improv game that he's loved his whole life to have this. And he and I just go back and forth on sort of rules to implement in future games. He even recently did a sort of a printout that sort of stamps down a little bit on the edgelordiness of things and tries to encourage a more come together and work together environment. And so this long anecdote is just to say to people out there, if you start with a good base of your rules, of just your comforts and things that are uncomfortable, I think that only builds a better system for you as you go forward. You can always refer back to those and say, well, hey, that doesn't fit what we agreed to, or you can, again, rules I think in the best of ways can and should be amended in the future. You mentioned players saying, just the typical stuff, but if something weird occurs in the future, I might have a conversation to you on the side. And I think it's just really wise. And I don't think you're going to hurt your game or tank your game in any meaningful way to start with that stuff. I think the earlier you implement, the better that will be for your group, just to know it's a safe space and here's what our values are as a shared collective, instead of surprise, now you're miserable and you're making, now we're all miserable as a result. Like that seems like a surefire way to torpedo the group in that case. So start with good rules and then work them up, build them with your friends.
It's just so, I'll say it again, it's just so nice to see, because for 10 years I've been screaming about it, and then there's lots of people that just been like, oh, what a loser, check this guy out. and now there's just people organically asking me, and I'm just like, okay, it was worth it. It's gonna make so many new people feel better, and so many people of color, and then so many people from different sexualities and backgrounds are gonna feel more comfortable coming to this space. I just want everyone to feel safe. That's all I want, because if you feel safe, the funnier the bits are gonna be.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. But yeah.
Without taking maybe too much time on this, I just think it's a fascinating subject. I would kind of ask, do you have a thought as to where this sort of shift has come from? I'm not expecting you to have the end-all be-all answer, but do you think it's because maybe some rule books have started with it? Do you think it maybe has something to do with the YouTubers that are out there doing these critiques? We've got places like Reddit where, for good or for ill, I mean, there's good. There are conversations coming out about this sort of stuff. What do you think about this? What's been the change, the instigator of this change?
I think it was when TTRPGs were shoved into the mainstream, and we just started getting more than just the white guy in your basement playing the game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's not hating anyone as a white guy in a basement right now.
Yeah, same, literally.
More different communities started getting involved with the games, and they started bringing their ideas. And then it's kind of like how America was built to begin with, right? It's just it was supposed to be like a melting pot. Everyone's contributing stuff to this giant stew, and then we all eat it and it tastes great. That's kind of how it felt for me, because I mean, I kind of watched it, start, and then things like Stranger Things came out, amplified it, and then podcasts amplified it. Stuff like Foundry and Roll20, and sadly COVID amplified it. I think it's just a lot of good people saw it, and they were like, well, we talk about this in drama club, or we talk about this in the counseling I go to. Why wouldn't I talk to Jeremy and Jane about what their no-goes are? Maybe Jane has a huge, terrible, crippling fear of cockroaches or something. I don't, and it's debilitating. So maybe we should know that before I just, turn her into a tizzy at a table, by accident. Because, it's sometimes something so mundane to you could be horrible to someone else. So I don't know if it was a singular thing. I think it was just all of these lovely and some bad communities coming together and, weeding out the bad stuff and keeping the good. Yeah, if I had to actually put it into words, which I don't think I've ever done, so probably be that. It'd just be the lovely new community people that have been added in the past 10 years.
I think that's a really solid answer. And yeah, I mean, I'm only in my still novice early stages of learning about the history of D&D, but as we've alluded to, the history of it does have very questionable language in the early materials, stuff that does
Yeah.
not hold up to scrutiny now. And I think I saw a YouTuber have a really good discussion about how very like D&D when its inception was still very Christian centric, that you're going out and you're fighting these non-Christian gods that are in the D&D stat blocks, and how that's, very Western centric sort of perspective to it. So I'm glad to see that the community has really started just across TTRPGs in general, started to recenter themselves around inclusivity, because I think improv is just a beautiful place for that inclusivity. I mean, this is us just acting out a fantasy world that we're enjoying. So why bring through the punishing, cruel aspects of our society right now, the bigotries of all types? I think this is about letting people who are oppressed in our regular society on a daily basis. This is supposed to be a place to heal, to grow, to do something different that you don't get to do. And so again, this all comes back around. I think all your questions have been phenomenal. Just going back to where we started with the idea of slavery in there. It's again one of those things that I think all game masters should handle very delicately, and that it's a real thing, and it plays a real purpose as an adversary in the Fallout universe. But, again, you want to check with all your players, make sure they're comfortable with these sort of scenes and topics. And if you want to give any kind of last thoughts on that, Nort, you're welcome to do so. But I also want to take some time, as we're getting closer to the end of our time, and talk about some other shows. And I think this might be a decent juxtaposition, sort of part of the conversation, in saying you don't just do TTRPG content, but a series reading children's books. And so maybe you could tell us a little bit about that podcast, and maybe how those extremes are again very juxtaposed here. They're very starkly pushed into each other's face, a world of slavery and harm and dark topics, but then you're also balancing one where you're reading kids stories.
Yep. So so besides the 3 TTRPG podcasts I do, and Hating Caesar's Legion, and also I also do Readingism for Kids, where me and my wife, we will read and review a children's chapter book, like a teen novel, or even like a comic sometimes. But we're reading it, and then we're coming to the podcast being like we're comparing it to like a college level book, like, because like the bit of the show is that we read and review these books, like we're reading Junie B. Jones like it's Macbeth, you know what I mean? And we're not necessarily like reading them out on the show, but we are like going in, we're spoiling the whole book, we're giving our thoughts, we're making outlandish like we're just looking into things way more than you should, in like a funny way. Like one of the running bits.
Doing Magic Treehouse in here. Oh, continue. Pardon me. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, yeah, I was just about to bring that up. Like, his Magic Treehouse, there's like a running bit where like Annie's character has changed so much, and it started off she was kind of a horrible person, and if you're looking at it from like a college level, it's almost like, oh, dude, she's like uncool, and then like at some point we're like, oh, like something happened, like did she get a lobotomy or something? Because now she's all different and changed, and now she can talk to animals, and it's like we bring like a heavy bit of satire to it, and I think it's definitely a different feeling than the TTRPGs, but it's still heavy relied on jokes, like we're goofing, but we are actually reading the dang thing. So like, and I think in one of the Goosebumps rereads, I was like I was like, I hate this book, sucked, I hated it. How do I make that funny? So like I really had to like think about how to like really use my disdain as a goof. But yeah, it's fun because I never read Magic Treehouse growing up. My wife did though, so we're going back and we're reading them, and it's quite interesting. Because again, I got the bit that going in that it's like, oh, this is a serious book. This is important to literature right now. So, and then going to that to being like, oh, we're gonna do something funny, but then I'm like, yeah, but then like there's people dying. How are you gonna fix that? And they're like, yeah, I do this. I'm gonna do it, and I'm like, there you go. It's a nice little foil. It gives my brain a break. Going to reading isn't for kids, because we're not reading anything in depth where I gotta like dissect it. You know what I mean? Like, really.
That's a great way to look at it. I mean, yeah, they're not intensive reads. I did quite a bit of Magic Treehouse when I was when I was a kid, and so I was pleasantly surprised when I saw it here on the list. Because I haven't yet listened to Reading Isn't for Kids, but I definitely checked it out whenever you sent stuff through. I was like, that's a really cool concept. And so I mean, I've already talked your ear off for quite a while, well over the time I had given you. So just being mindful to your schedule, I would ask, on the way out the door, if you want to promote your own works and then maybe direct us to some other people out there that you look up to, whether they're content creators of their own, or even if you want to direct us to some other players. I want to say that to the audience, the door for Austin, if he wants to come back here, Nort, pardon me, come back through and have lots more conversations to come. I mean, I just didn't realize how long I was geeking out over TTRPG plots and themes and all the rest. I had all these other questions I was going to get to for you today, but when two GMs sit down and finally get a chance to, riff back and forth, I think that's a really fun experience. So, Nort, do you want to tell people they're just approaching you for the first time, they're just hearing you today, let's say, we got your link tree, what sort of content would you tell them to check out first, and maybe in what order? Because, I mean, even with Grim Encounters, the Fallout stuff comes a bit later. So how do you guide people who are just finding you?
Yes. Oh, and like you said, like we're just both yapping. I'm assuming we're both yappers, because I'm a yapper. I can just be yapping and yapping. Yeah, I kind of got that vibe when we sat down and we instantly we locked in. So if we even want to come back, maybe in a few weeks, and we could talk about some of the other stuff, that even if it's on more of like the crunchy side of like content creation,
certainly,
happily we'll do that. Because I love hearing other people's techniques and stuff too. So, but for my stuff, for Grim Encounters, there's 4 seasons. Seasons 1 through 3 is set in the modern day world of Chicago. Following 3 monster hunters working for the secret organization, think like Men in Black meets Supernatural, called Save. And that's the whole thing, is what they're doing, is hunting stuff, and then it's like interpersonal drama, and then like their families are all involved, because of course it's like Supernatural, which again, I haven't watched it, but everyone I've said listen to, it's like, oh, this reminds me of this show, and I'm like, well, shoot. And then one of my players is like, yeah, I thought you knew that.
That's high praise in my world, by the way. As a guy that's binged it, loves Supernatural.
Yeah. He's like, I thought you've watched it. And I went, no. He's like, you're just doing that. I'm like, well, awesome. It must be cool. And then I look it up and I'm like, oh, these 2 brothers are hot. Okay. That's like the surface level. So then, and then season 4 is those players, like Mavis, Wesley, and Raph, playing the Fallout characters. So it's like a meta in a meta. Like their players are playing their characters who are playing characters.
Oh, that's so cool. Sorry, I didn't even get that when I was getting into all this. So there's a whole other meta to this that I haven't even.
It was like a little Marvel Easter egg for the longtime listeners. Because we do our recaps. It's like an actual recap at the table of their player characters telling what happened from their POV. Because when we do recaps in seasons 1 through 3, it's them talking to the therapist character named Dr. Grimm, who he wears a plague doctor's masks because he has magical 3rd-degree burns all over his body that don't go away. So he has to wear a special suit. And that's kind of how it makes the show. It's Grim Encounters. It's Grim telling everyone what's happened. He's cataloging everything. and then he is watching them play the Fallout game. Like, he's always there. I like, even if I don't mention him, he's there watching, just observing. In the best order to do, if you coming from Fallout, just start with season 4. That's completely fine. Season 5, we are going back to the season 3 characters. So like we're gonna do jumps back and forth probably between stuff. And then if you wanted to start somewhere, you can either start on season 1 or season 2. Season 2 is like a soft reboot. Like, we explain a lot of stuff that happens in season 1, and we lost a player. Like, he had to step away for work. It was completely fine. He had a whole send off. Like, it ended fine. But so like we did season 2. We're like, let's just kind of like soft launch this again. Like, it's all that's canon. But if you don't listen to it, okay. And then the first like 30 episodes of season 1, we had 2 microphones because this was 2018. So the audio is a little patchy, and I lost all the original files, so I can't even go back and remaster them. And they're still really good. It's just, as someone who edits audio, I'm just like, I gotta tell people just so they know I know. But yeah, start at season 2 or season 4. A lot of people do is they'll start at 2, listen 2, 3, 4, and then they're like, well, I'm gonna go back and listen to 1 now, and they're like, why didn't I start here? I'm like, I just didn't want you to leave me.
I love that. I mean, it is that good of content, folks. If you need to go out there, get subscribed to it for sure. And I don't want to take you too off track. You know, if you want to give some others for the rest of the shows here,
Yeah,
but just again, a reminder to folks that you'll be able to grab Nort's link tree in the description below, whether you're on YouTube or Spotify or wherever you're listening to the Substack, etc. We'll make sure to have this link tree in there. And I strongly encourage the audience, get in on this content. People are out here making good stuff. And the reason for this whole show here is to do these introductions, because I don't know about a lot of these shows until someone brings it up to me. And so this is kind of another name for Vault Broadcast could be like, show Kyle your cool shit. This is an idea. Come by, tell me how badass it is. And again, it is. It genuinely is. So with the rest of this here, reading isn't for kids, so you finally watch The Encounter Table and Medieval Midwest.
Yes.
How many of these are for other TTRPG nerds out there? Reading isn't for kids, we heard a bit about. What about the rest of the list?
Yeah, So You Finally Watched is where me and one of my best friends, we watch and review a movie the other hasn't seen. So usually each recording, because everything's on a bi-weekly, so we do 2 episodes a month for all these shows. So twice a month we take turns watch and review a movie. Like, I had never seen Breakfast Club, and he started screaming and throwing up. And then he never watched Alien, so then I started screaming and throwing up. And that's been a kind of a constant in each other's lives. Like, we'll tell people like, oh, I haven't seen Terminator or something, and they'll be like, huh? What do you mean? So it's like, let's just do this and kind of use their rage to fuel our our enjoyment. Like playful rage. Like, no one's actually mad about that, but you know what I mean. So that's kind of what that show's about. It's really fun. We completely spoiler the movie, so know that going in, and then we talk about behind the scenes stuff and fun facts and stuff. It's a lot of fun. And then Medieval Midwest is a show I do with a couple of my other close friends. I'm just a cast member on it. I play William Fletcher, who is the son of a character on Grim Encounters. So they're like Marvel connected, kind of like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. to
I love that.
Thor or whatever. And that's about a group of monster hunters using the Monster of the Week setting to hunt monsters in Michigan that are showing up, and they're all like D&D themed monsters. So like we fought like a Balrogura, and then like I think what else, like a dragon and stuff, and like it's still D&D themed, but it is very much like a campy horror. Like, one session we're fighting an elemental dragon, and then the next session we're at Denny's and I'm forcing Luke Godfrey, our lovely game master, to be a waitress. And we all have like the menu up and we're actually ordering, and the pure rage he gets sometimes is, and he plays it up obviously, is really worth it. People really like that. That's the one where I'm in the where I kiss people. And then the Encounter Table is like the flagship of Encounter show. Again, I am a cast member on that. I do some minor producing and editing for them, but that is It started with 4 people getting sucked in Jumanji style to a Evil Wizards game. And then eventually I took over DM at some point. I didn't start on the show. I came in like episode 28. And then I started DMing it, and we kind of switched it up a little bit, but it's still the same characters going to a different. They get sucked into another world, and it's a comedy. It's like, I would say comedy first, and then there's some pretty like heavy stuff in it, with like characters, and some of the player characters people really latch onto, just with their backgrounds and stuff. So it's fun. It's the encounter table is like one of the bigger shows I do. So, and it's just D&D 5e. So good old classic. But yeah, and right now we're in the middle of doing a season on the main feed, and there's going to be one on the Patreon too. So there's going to be 2 campaigns. Nice. So yeah, that's what we're working on. It's a lot of dang fun.
That is a wonderful list of it, and that's something I would love to pick your brain about in the future, is balancing that sort of schedule. I mean, that's a lot of content to put out there. That's a lot of just really great storytelling to get involved with. So again, to everyone out there, be sure to go and subscribe across the space. And just think, everyone, the best part of seeing all these Spotify links is they're all free. Go in there and hit them all and get it subscribed to each and every one, and you'll never be bored. You'll have Fallout and you'll have D&D content until you just can't take it anymore. I know Grim Encounters, though, is just a special one for me, considering I love that campy horror sort of thing like you're talking about for seasons 1 through 3. So I'm going back after I get further in Fallout, and I'm going into it. I do want to leave you a last little bit of time here. We always like to ask our guests that come through if you have other creators out there you want to shine a spotlight on, and you did a little bit there towards the end with the encounter table and Medieval Midwest. But is there anyone else you want to kind of recommend to our audience that they should go follow? Anyone that inspires you or just gets your creativity going?
Yeah, so there are 2 other shows on our the Encounter Code network that I am genuinely a fan of. Like, I listen to every week that they come out. The first one's Afterlife. It's about this group of people who died, and then they're sent to like basics was like a purgatory-esque world, without spoiling too much, where now they're in like a fantasy world and they have to deal with that. They have their old memories, but now they're an elf, and like, what's going on? I remember dying, and they have to like deal with their pillars and stuff. It's a lot of fun. Brennan Gifford's the DM on that. He does a lovely job. A newer player too, so it's nice to see some new heads really killing it. And then Shadowbound, which it's using a TTRPG they made themselves called Fantasy Unhinged. And McCandless Harrison is the DM on that, and McCandless is awesome. There's like never really any combat. It's basically just straight role play and like dealing with like relationships, not even necessarily like more like platonic, like friendships and enemies, and like how do we come from that, and like how do we manage our emotions. It's very, very interesting, and it's set in a fantasy world as well. And then finally, something I'm not involved with at all, I've just been a fan since it came out around the same time I started. It's called Tales of the Voidfarer. It's a Dungeons and Dragons 5e system, and it's set in Spelljammer. And it's what made me fall in love with Spelljammer as a setting. So it's these 3 people, and they just start off as like working on a Spelljammer, and then just as in D&D fashion, it gets bigger than them, and now they're dealing with it. And there's a penguin guy. It's good.
A penguin guy.
Yes.
Those are some good recommendations.
Shout outs. Yeah.
Well, Nort, I am very appreciative of you coming through here today. It was an absolute blast, and just wonderful to nerd out with a fellow GM for this. And I have no doubt that there's a lot to learn from your podcast productions to GMing styles, and I hope the audience out there gets something good out of it. For us nerds who are enjoying the official TTRPG for Fallout, we got new stuff coming this winter, is the rumor, that they're gonna put out some new books, so it's a good time. If you've ever considered it, maybe you really want to go for it. I mean, again, there's great content out here, and I'll be really specific at the end and say I was looking for shows like yours when I was first picking up the book January of last year, just for example. And so I'm really happy to have you and a couple other GMs that have come through the door, just because this content is out there. But as with all things, the algorithm can make it very difficult to find at times. So we're share and share like crew here with the Vault Broadcast podcast. Go share all of this with your friends, folks. Let them know about Grim Encounters. Let them know about the other shows that you just heard listed off: Afterlife, Shadowbound, and Tales from the Void Fairs. Get good people even more momentum, promote the shows you like and all the rest. So sound off in the comments below if you enjoyed this episode. If you want to see Nort come by through in the future, you're welcome to post some questions down there as well. I will happily aggregate those, bring them together, but I would certainly love to regroup in a couple weeks or so. My summer is going to get a little bit busy here at the end of this month and into next, but I really would love to do more to talk about that schedule of yours, how you handle the podcast, editing, and all the rest. It's just something it means a lot to me. I'm a guy sitting here doing the same, so it's fun to bring together these fellow voices and learn from each other. So Nort, with that being said, I want to thank you, like I said, one last time for stopping by here today. And everyone out there, make sure to go support Nort's work. It's wonderful, and it gets my recommendation. So until next time, you all out there stay safe in the Wasteland. Well, thanks, Kyle from the past, for that wonderful interview with Nort. Please, everyone, make sure to go into the description below and check out Nort's links. Go get subscribed to all the shows on Spotify and the rest. And if you want to do the very same for us, we would love it if you could give us a thumbs up, a subscribe, turn on the notification bell. Those are all super helpful ways to help over on YouTube. Leave a comment below, especially if you want to talk about questions for the next interview with Nort, if you want to leave us some suggestions for other people you'd like to see interviewed, or maybe just tell us which character you would like to make in a Fallout TTRPG. We'd love to see it, and all that interaction helps us in the algorithm. Beyond that, again, you can check out our Coffee page to become a subscribed member on a monthly basis. We've got a Fallout zine coming. We got some behind-the-scenes recordings from a new studio coming up, and much, much more, as well as you can use our codes over on the Bethesda Gear Shop, which I'll have linked again below. They expire within a week, so we keep them fresh and changing at all times. But those codes will save you 20% off. They give us 10% kickback, as well as you can save 10% off of the Fallout TTRPG over on the Modifius website using our evergreen code BTAILS without any numbers in there. That's going to do it for this episode. This was a super fun one. If any of you want to call into the show, I will flash a link up on the screen now. You can send us voice messages or even text messages that will go from text to speech, which is wonderful. We can include these at the end. This is a big reminder that the current iteration of Vault Broadcast that you're watching right now is only the start. I aim to make this into a live show that has even more than one guest coming through on occasion. We'd really like to have it so we have a cast of weekly guests that come by, probably one per episode, that just comes back, tells us little updates about their projects and the rest. It's all about making a fun community here of people who are really engaged and welcome. So if you've got anything you'd like to submit to the show, have added to the end of these episodes, by all means, you're welcome to do that. We'd love to include little snippets from the community and just really help cross-promote and uplift all the fellow creators that we've got out there. And honestly, if you're just a Fallout lover who's got a big opinion about it, you're welcome to submit that too. This is going to have some open lines in the future where we just welcome community members from across the space, whether you're a creator or not, to come through and just tell us your burning thoughts about the Fallout universe. So stay safe out there, everyone in the Wasteland. It's been an absolute blast producing these episodes for you. We got many more coming, but we've got some moves coming up here too at the end of this month of June. So if at all there's any delays in the Vault Broadcast production in the near future, it's probably because we're moving on to bigger and better spaces to record. So just look out for that. Until then, stay safe out there. Don't let any Enclave members open up your vault door and gun everyone down. Bye-bye.